I thought I had it all. My marriage was perfect, my family seemed flawless, and I was blissfully unaware of the secret my wife was keeping. That secret, it eventually came to light, and let's just say, it's something that would be hard for any man to forgive. I first crossed paths with Katie a decade ago at a disco. The energy was electric, the music pumping, and Katie was one of the most vibrant dancers on the floor. During a break, she and I, along with a few others, begged DJ Paul to play some of our favorite tracks. As the opening beats of a well-known Scooter song blasted through the speakers, Katie started chatting with someone near the DJ booth. Suddenly, the music shifted to something completely different. I glanced over, and there she was, grinning and sticking out her tongue at me. It was a playful, teasing moment that caught me off guard, and I couldn't help but feel a spark. After the event wrapped up, I made my way to Katie, and with a smile, asked, "Was that on purpose?" She let out a laugh, her eyes twinkling. "Of course. What did you think, you were the coolest one here?" I couldn't help but play along. "Well, if I'm not, then I guess I'm not a slug, huh? In that case, how about you walk me home?" I was smitten, and it wasn't long before we were strolling down the dark streets, chatting casually. The night was quiet, almost too quiet, and as we walked, I noticed a figure trailing behind us. It wasn't until we got to Katie's place that I realized how closely the person had been following us. After a brief goodbye, I turned to head back home, but I'd barely taken a few steps when the shadow I'd noticed earlier morphed into a large figure, standing right in front of me. It was the guy from the disco, the one who had spent the whole night leaning against the wall, looking like he was about to burst into some aggressive dance move at any second. But instead, he swung at me with a massive fist. "Hey, little brother, don't think I didn't notice you with Katie. Stay away from her," he growled. Quick reflexes from my karate days kicked in, and before he could even realize what was happening, I dodged his punch and landed a solid kick to his groin. The guy, clearly not expecting it, crumpled to the ground. I stood over him, hands on my hips. "Get lost, big guy. If I see you again, I'll put you in a cast." He scrambled to his feet, clearly dazed, but he retreated without a word. I thought that would be the end of it. But as it turns out, the surprises of the night weren't over yet. Katie suddenly appeared from the doorway, wrapping her arms around my neck. "You idiot, he won't let me pass," she exclaimed. And just like that, things fell into place between us. As they say, one swift kick to the bully's groin, and I had Katie's heart. Fast forward 10 years, and here we are, married, raising our son, Ron. And in just a week, it would be his birthday. We were excited to give him the perfect gift, a game console that promised to bring countless hours of joy. We invited the boys, our friends, and family. The plan was to celebrate at home, but there was one last detail to figure out. Katie insisted we hire animators. Sweetheart, Lednev's team was a hit at Alex's party. Everyone loved them. "What do you think about hiring them?" she suggested. I didn't mind, so I called and booked 2 animators for the big day. The party day arrived, and our guests showed up right on time. The animators turned out to be a cowboy and an Indian. We split into teams, and the games began. It was the first time I'd seen the cowboy. But the Indian, now there was something familiar about him. After a few moments, it clicked. The Indian was none other than DJ Paul, the same DJ from those wild nights at the disco. When the party was over, I went over to him, wanting to reminisce. "Paul, I didn't recognize you at first. I danced to your rhythms at the disco," I said. The Indian smiled, immediately recognizing both me and Katie. "I remember you too, Katie, right?" he replied. We chatted a little more before saying goodbye, and I didn't think much of it. I had no idea that this meeting would mark the beginning of the disintegration of my family life. About an hour or so later, after the last of the guests had left, the doorbell rang. I heard some shouting from the front door, followed by the sound of Katie's voice. I began to crawl toward her. confusion flooding my mind. And there, standing in the doorway, was the same big guy, the one I'd taken down in the alley years ago. Katie was beside herself, her voice trembling with emotion. "Go away and never come back," she screamed at the man, but his response was surprisingly calm, almost too calm for the situation. He began speaking, almost as though rehearsing something. "Well, I guess he's finally remembered the lesson I taught him," the man began in a flat voice. "I'm sorry, but 10 years ago, there was some misunderstanding between us. We didn't even really get to know each other then. My name is Oliver. That night, I just wanted you to know that your current wife and I had something serious going on. I was drafted into the army, and I had to leave to serve in my country. I went to college, but then my mother got seriously ill, and I had to take care of her, which brought me another reprieve. When she died, I was drafted into the army at the age of 25. Katie admitted that she wasn't ready to wait these 2 years, and neither was I. I couldn't accept it. I loved her. Paul called today and said he was working on a birthday party. He mentioned that the boy looked a lot like me, and that we matched perfectly in time. Kat, this is my son." Katie was silent for a moment, and then, as if preparing for this, she spoke in a flat but regretful tone. "Honestly, you're right. Katie is not stupid. Over the years that we've been together, she's learned to understand me better than I could have imagined. She knew that I would insist on a DNA test, and she never denied it. Ron's biological father is Oliver. I couldn't tell you about it 10 years ago because I wasn't sure who his father was then. But when Ron grew up, it became clear that he was yours. I'm sorry, but I think you understand now." I couldn't speak. I felt like my world was crumbling around me. Katie's words hit me harder than I expected, and the weight of the situation crashed down on me. She had made a choice, and I had been blind to it all. I knew I couldn't keep pretending. I filed for divorce. Maybe it wasn't the right thing to do, but I couldn't keep living this lie. I couldn't look at Ron without seeing the features of that man from the alley. I tried, I really did, but I just couldn't do it. And as for the alimony, well, I didn't pay a single cent. I'd proven in court that I wasn't the father, and so I had no obligation. Katie, though, she was left alone with everything. As time went on, I found out the truth about Oliver. He had been a poor husband, working hard in the northern regions just to make a living. There he met someone else, a cook, someone he apparently connected with. And that was it. He divorced Katie and left her behind. As for me, I eventually moved on, even forgetting about my son.